Hello! In this tutorial I'll teach you how to create a page with the combo box, which will load records from a database table, and according with the user's selection of that combo box we'll have a second element, a form, which will show the details of that specific record that the user selected. So to do that, let's log in our framework. We'll show by default the advanced workspace, so let's select the default project, my first project that comes with the default installation, and this is an empty installation where we have just one page, we have the logic, and we don't have any templates. So what we want to do next, so first thing to do is we're going to use here to do, for the sake of this tutorial, we'll use a table which we already have here created. So we have here a bunch of tables which comes by default because we have a bunch of modules installed in this installation, and additional of that we have these three tables that comes by default on this demo, which basically it's very simple, these three tables, which basically has this diagram, which is a school which has teachers and a school which has students. So it's just for the sake of this demo, we just created these three dummy tables. So we can see that the school table is a very simple table, just contains two attributes, the school ID, a primary key, and the name. As we can see here, has three records. Okay, so we could create a new table. We won't do that. It doesn't, for the sake of this tutorial, it doesn't make sense. So what we want to do, we want to be focused on the presentation layer, creating a page which we're going to have a combo box which will load the school's records, and automatically then will show, according with that the user selects that specific options, that specific records, it will show then the details of that school, just so you can see an example how a specific element can interact with other elements. So first thing to do is to open the index page as we did already, and choose a template. We don't have any installed template, so let's import one from our default store. Then we select the template, and currently we can see here the corresponding template. So next step that we want to do, we want to maybe drag here a div, and then we want to drag here a combo box. Let's just expand this so we can see this better, like in here. Okay, perfect. And we want now to drag and drop a drop down here, and let's add a class here, form selects, so we can see this better. Attention, when we select this combo box, sometimes the system creates these dimensions by default, so let's just erase these. Okay, perfect. And now what we want to do, we want to go to the widgets part, to the resources, and we want to load. When the page loads, we want to get a resource which you're going to get automatically the records from the school table and show that records in that combo box. So to do that, we click here in this pencil icon, which is choose a resource. We are in here, basically we'll choose our table, the school table, and we're going to select this query type. The option that we're going to select here is this one, get options, and we're going to click in this button update. Automatically the system will create all the resources, all the business logic services, and all the correspondence functionality to get all the records from the school table, from the database, to transform that list into a list that the select box can read, and to show that specific records in the select box. So next step, so that's what it did automatically. So basically it creates here a new resource called get school options, as we can see it here. So now the next step is we want this to be loaded on page loads, and we need to select this handler here, load field resource handler. Okay, so if we save this and if we preview this page, we should see already a list of the schools that we have in our database. Perfect. So what we want to do next, when the user selects a school here, I want to see below here the details of that school, which in this case is just the name again. We just have one, but if we had multiple attributes, we could show here the multiple attributes. This is just for the sake of this tutorial, just so you can understand how can you relate this combo box or this item with another HTML item, with another HTML element. So let's go back to our design area, and in here what we want to do is to drag and drop another div, and let's drag a form here, where in this form here what I want to do is I want to have in the resources, I want to load a new resource too. So I'll click here, but this case this resource will be for the school table too, but I want in this case to get a specific record, and I don't select any of these, I just do updates, and automatically the system will create the corresponding resource to get a specific school record from the database. And now I want this to load not on page load, because I just want to call this resource when the user selects some option here. So I do when parent draws item, and I want to call this handler called load form resource. And now I want to draw here my HTML elements to show that specific name of the selected school. So I can just put here name, I could put a div if I wanted to, so this could be more organized. I could put here spam if I want this to be a read-only table. I could just make, well in this case a read-only form, I could make this div as a spam, okay. And what I want to do now is to go to the display resource attributes, came here to this resource, that was the resource that we created, and I wanted to show the name in here. Okay, perfect. And now we have a resource in the form which will be loaded when some other element asks this guy to load that resource, and then according with the handler it will show the name of that school resource in here in this spam element. So how can I make this select this combo box or this select element according with the changes to ask the form to, in this case this guy here, the form to reload the resource. So let's select this combo box, and basically let's scroll this down to the on change event. Let's click in this in the icon of the zoom icon. Let's select here trigger short action, and we're gonna put here this action here, refresh dependent widgets based in non-empty input value. But what this do is reload data from the dependent widgets based on the non-input field value. So this only trigger the load resource from this form if there is something selected here. Okay, so next step is, so basically this will reload the resources on the dependent widgets. So next step that we need to do, we need to select the dependent widgets in this combo box resource, which is in here. So this form needs to have an ID, which doesn't have because we didn't create one. So next step is to go here to the form and create an ID, which you're gonna call it form1. So now we can go back to our drop down element, go to the dependencies and add a new dependence, which we're gonna have the form1 dependency, the form ID, which is the form_1. Okay, what's missing here? Very important. So if we execute this, nothing will happen because this drop down needs to have a name. Needs to have a name which current doesn't have. So this name needs to be the so basically this select form, this drop down, as we can see here, as a list of the schools. Basically this is the name of the school, but after we select this, the value of this correspondent element, it is the school ID. So this is 1, this is 9, and this is 11. These are the primary keys of each record. So basically what we want to pass here is the school ID. So if we save this and if we refresh this page, we see, as a matter of fact, an error, and I'll explain why we'll show this error, but let's first just see if this is working or not. So after we select here some school, it shows the correspondence element, the correspondence attributes of the element that I selected here. If I had other attributes or in this table, automatically it will show that specific attributes. So this is a way of doing this very fast. Why is giving the error when I click refresh? Why is this error? Okay, first of all, what we want to do is when we click in the form, when it's trying basically to load the load resource, and is giving an error because there is no school ID selected. So what we can do first is to put a different error message saying please select the school above, something like that. And if we do save, we'll see a different message, which should not be this ugly message, but still not perfect. So what we want to do, we want to avoid this error here, this message here. So to do that, we need to go to that specific resource, which is the school resource, and in here we need to add this condition, which basically will say only loads the school resource if the resource is school, and if there is an search attributes search underscore attrs attributes from the URL. So if we save this and if we refresh this, it only shows this beautiful message. If we don't want any message, very simple, we just need to go here and put a space. We click save, we put a space, like let me select, so this is a space here, and if we refresh this, maybe it didn't save, let's save this again. Okay, now it's saved. So now when we refresh, it doesn't show anymore the message. So after we select here the corresponding schools, automatically it shows the correspondent record. If we select empty, it doesn't do anything because there is no record. So it shows this because it's not doing anything here, because the event that we selected here was on non-empty value, and this is an empty value. That's why it's not showing here. Okay, this is one way of doing the things. Another way of doing this much easier and much faster. So let's create here a new page called easier. Let's browse a new templates and select a template. And now in here what we want to do is we want to go to our database layer, select the correspondent table and drag and drop it here. Choose form, view, proceeds, and automatically we have here a school created. So we have the system creates all the resources and all of that we need to have the specific form. And what we want to do here inside of this div, we want to drag and drop, or we want to create a search attributes. Let me show you this. So what we want to do basically is to drag and drop a div inside of here, select that div, and in the properties go to the widget properties and select this option here, which is the search option, search group. We want to select it here, and in here what I want to do, we want to click here with the select field, and automatically will do everything for us. We'll create a combo box, we'll get the specific data for the schools, and automatically it will relate this field with this one, if I'm not mistaken. So let's just save and see what happens. So if we do the preview of this page, okay, we see here no record available. If we select here, okay, it's not doing still anything. Okay, it's fine. Why? Because the form, when we have the resource, the load resource, we need to change this to when parent draws item, and in here we need to be sure that we have the correspondent dependencies. Okay, which we don't have, so we need to create the correspondent dependencies. Okay, so we just need to go here, widget ID, and we need to select this correspondent form ID, which is the widget form 1. Okay. Okay, need to refresh. Widget form 1. Okay, done. We save this, and when we refresh this, when we select, it shows automatically the correspondent data. Is exactly the same thing. As you can see, it's a much easier way of doing this. Additionally, if you want, we can put here some CSS, some classes. We are using Bootstrap, so that's why we can put this class and automatically it shows this CSS more beautiful. So basically this is another way, much simpler, to create a select, and based on that select, then based on the dependency, show that data of that specific selection in some other elements. Okay, so basically let's do a summary of what we have done in this tutorial. So first methods, we got a table from the database, an existing table which has 3 records already populated, as we can see, these 3 records. So then we went to the interface, we create this index page where basically we drag and drop a combo box, which then we create a resource to load the data from that school table, and then we create a form showing the name of that school, of the selection here, of the selection of that, the user selection of that drop down in this spam. And we create, to do that, we needed to select the dependents in this combo box. Then we create another methods, I'll show you another methods of doing this in a much easier way, which was drag and drop the table from here, selecting the form view. I select the read-only form, but it could be an editable form. It would work the same way. So to do that, I just needed to come here, and instead of doing the view, I just needed to do the edit. It will work the same way, and automatically the system created me in here all the HTML and all the resources to get the specific school elements. And then what I did was I drag and drop a div inside of this main div that the system created. It's very important that div be inside of this one, because the way that this works is this main div, it's a main form group, and a main form group basically has these properties saying that this main form group corresponds to the school table. So when I drag and drop a div here, and when I selected this as a search group, and automatically I select here with the select field, automatically he knows that he needs to create a select drop down element to search based in the school table. And then what I needed to do was to, in this specific field, to set the dependence to this specific form, and voila, automatically everything was working fine, as we could see here. This is just an example. Additionally, if we want to show a blank form or a blank data details, if every time that a user selects an empty option here, because currently is not showing any, so if every time that we select here an empty value, if we want to show a blank details here, to do that what we need to do is, so first we need to go to the resources here, we need to go to the school group resource, and in here what we want to do is first only execute this resource when there are multiple ways of doing this, or we could edit this resource directly, or in here we could just execute this based in this condition. If the search attributes school ID exists, it executes this resource, this action. Otherwise, if condition in this case is invalid, what we want to do, we want to create an array where it only shows the school. It will be an array with the name attributes empty. So what we needed to do here will be to add here 0 empty, okay, will be append to previous results. When we load the schools, we want to append to the previous result, which is this result here. And now when we refresh this, it's almost working. Okay, so we just need to add here the school ID empty too, and automatically it works. So this is for the easier. For the index is something similar. Where in the school group we want, instead this we can remove. So execute this resource and then execute this one only if there is a school ID in the search. Otherwise, result array. If is invalid, in here will be the school ID, and in here will be the name. So it will return an empty array. Additionally, this guy here, it should load the event handler. Is not on empty, based on empty inputs. It's based now, it's not refresh based on not empty input, it's just refresh based in input value to include the non-empty. Okay, this is one way, or we could have done the other way, which is like we did the other one, add here an option with 0. and leave the other one, and leave the other on change events. Okay, so we can save this, we can refresh. Okay, we choose this when it works. Okay, it's working fine. Okay, now it's working fine. So this is like just a small add-on of this tutorial. The important thing is not that you know this last detail to show this blank. The important thing is that you know how to create widgets or to create HTML elements that can be loaded dynamically, and then how can you, according with some changes they do in that elements, how can other elements be changed to dynamically. So this was the purpose and the sake of this tutorial, and that's it. So thank you very much.